أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Welcome everyone. This is our lecture 2 of the video series on principles of auditing. So I welcome you all to our today's lecture. In today's lecture, we'll have the following contents. First, we will have discussion on the previous lecture, which is lecture number 01, which was about the meaning and definition of auditing. And then we'll have discussion on features, objectives, and need of audit. We'll have a discussion on the history of auditing. And the main discussion is going to be on professional bodies in auditing and accounting. So let's get started with the review of our previous lecture, which is the meaning and definition of auditing. So last time we discussed that auditing is basically checking off someone else's accounting, right? Checking off someone else's accounting. So accounting, we know what accounting is. Accounting is basically a systematic process of identifying, analyzing, recording, classifying, and summarizing the business transactions, and reporting and interpreting the results from those. So basically accounting has 5 main activities. Number 1, identifying or analyzing the business transactions. Number 2, recording those business transactions into the journal with chronological order. Number 3, classifying all those transactions which are recorded in the journal, classifying them into the ledger or creating ledger accounts. Number 4, summarizing all those transactions into the trial balance. And number 5 is reporting and interpreting. Reporting, by reporting those transactions, we mean preparing financial statements. And by interpreting, we mean applying certain analysis, various methods of analysis on those financial statements to get results or some specific information based on which various kinds of decisions are made. So basically there are 5 main elements or steps in accounting, right? If we divide these 5 elements into 2 parts, that could be accounting is recording and reporting of the business transactions. So that is the short definition of accounting: recording and reporting of the business transactions. And recording, we have 4 main steps: identification and analyzation, recording into journal, classifying them into trial balance, into ledger, and summarize them into the trial balance. In reporting phase, we have preparation of the financial statements and their interpreting the results by applying some tools and techniques to get specific information for decision making, right? So that was all about accounting. So this is accounting. Now what is auditing? Auditing is basically checking of accounting. Means in auditing we check all these 5 steps, or the 2 main steps in accounting, which is recording and reporting, or which is all those 5 steps. We have to check each step one by one, right? Now let's come to the definition. This definition says a systematic and independent process of examination of financial or accounting information and expression of opinion on financial information of an enterprise by an auditor. Last time I had questions from the students regarding what enterprise is and who auditor is. Inshallah, I'll explain these 2 terms in today's lecture later on. But let's first have an overview of the definition. It's a systematic. Systematic means that it is based on standards. This audit process itself has standards. Like accounting, in accounting we had standards which are financial IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, and GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Similarly, in auditing, in order to carry out audit, or in order to do auditing, we have to follow international auditing standards. So that's why this process is called a systematic process, because it follows the standards, international standards. And then there is independent. Independent means that this process is not carried out by the employee of the organization or someone from the internal environment of the organization, right? So the audit process is carried out by external individual, and that individual is called auditor, right? That external individual, and that individual is called auditor. So that's why we call that auditing is a systematic and independent process. Okay, what do we do in this process? 2 main things happen. Number 1, examination of the financial or accounting information, and number 2, expression of opinion on financial information. So examination of the financial or accounting information, examination happens with the help of verification and vouching, and I have explained that in great detail in our previous lecture. Financial or accounting information consists of accounting record and financial statements, right? Accounting record consists of all the documents, all the files which contains paperwork on the back of the transactions, including a journal, ledger, and trial balance. All of them, including the copies of contracts, copies of invoices, and all those hard filings behind the transactions, we call them accounting record. And then financial statements are 4, or sometimes we say they are 5, or sometimes we say they are 6, but anyhow there are 4 main financial statements: the income statement, the statement of financial position or the balance sheet, or the statement of change in equity or owner's equity statement, and the statement of cash flow. And sometimes we have notes to financial statements, and sometimes there are financial analysis. So all of them could be financial reports, right? So examination of the financial or accounting record, we have to, in the process of auditing, an auditor verify and vouch all the accounting record and the financial statements of a company for a given time period, right? And number 2 step, expression of opinion on financial information. So the financial information which is examined by the auditor, at the end, what does he do? He expresses his opinion in order to communicate with the readers that whether this accounting record and financial statement, they were true and fair or not. True and fair, right? True and fair. What is the expression of opinion? Expression of opinion is to make sure that the accounting record and financial information which are examined by the auditor are true and fair or not, right? So if we divide the audit process into two, in simple words we can say that auditing is basically examination of the financial information and then expression of opinion on that financial information by an auditor, right? So again, there is recording and reporting. At the time of examination, auditor records each and every thing with himself, and then those records are used while at the time of expressing the opinion, right? So now, what is an enterprise? Enterprise we can call enterprise can be any organization, for-profit organization or for non-profit organization, right? So audit is for each and every type of organization, whether it's a business organization or whether it's a non-business organization. So this process could be for each and every organization. So enterprise means here company or organization. Auditor is basically a professional individual who is certified by the professional bodies in order to carry out audits. یک نفر مسلکی که جواز چی را داشته باشد؟ جواز تفتیش مالی را داشته باشه، امور ما آدیتور میگیم. هر نفر آدیتور شدن نمیتونه. آدیتور کسی باید باشه که او سرتیفاید باشه توسط نهادهای مسلکی، او سرتیفاید می باشه، او جواز داشته می باشه و او اجازت نامه داشته می باشه. بالاخره او باز میتونه که audit را carry out بکنه. So basically audit is examination and then expression of opinion. These both two steps are carried out by the auditor, right? So there was the short overview of or review of our previous lecture. If you require further information, please watch my first lecture, lecture 01, where I have taken more than 40 minutes on explaining the meaning and the definition of the audit or auditing, right? So let's start with the next features of auditing. So previously we said that auditing and accounting, they are interconnected, right? If there is no accounting, there is no auditing, right? And every accounting should have an auditing. So there is a very strong link between auditing and accounting. Previously we discussed what accounting is and also what auditing is. Now here are some features, some characteristics of auditing, with the help of which we can differentiate between auditing and accounting. So the first one is audit is a systematic and scientific examination of the books of accounts of all of a business. Systematic and scientific examination. When we say systematic and scientific examination, it means that this examination follows certain standards. So the audit process has international standards. According to standards, the audit process is carried out, which means that in every part of the world, the audit process is same. It's not different. Like accounting is same all over the world, auditing is also same all over the world, right? So examination here means verification and vouching. What do we examine? The books of accounts. Books of accounts, there are two types of books of accounts: primary book of account and secondary book of account. Primary book of account, or the book of original entries, that is journal, and secondary book of account, that is trial balance, or the book of D accounts. So in audit process, these two books are scientifically and systematically examined, means verified and vouched. Number two, audit is undertaken by an independent person or body of persons who are duly qualified for the job. The second feature which could help us differentiate between accounting and auditing is that auditing is carried out by an independent person or body of persons. By independent person we mean the auditor, right? And I explained the auditor. And by body of person we mean the auditing companies or auditing firms, right? So if it's an individual person, he should be qualified for the job, and if it is a audit firm, audit company, that audit company should also be qualified for this job. For what job? For auditing job. Now, how he gets qualified? I earlier mentioned that qualification is given by the professional bodies, right? There are some professional, internationally recognized professional bodies who provide accreditation and certification to the individuals and also to the organizations to carry out audits, right? So every organization cannot become auditing organization, and every person cannot become an auditor, right? There is certain specific procedure with the help of which a person becomes an auditor, and also an organization can become an auditing organization, right? Inshallah, we will talk about that later in our upcoming lectures. Number 3, auditing. Now, what was accounting? Accounting is carried out by basically a person from inside the organization, or maybe a person from outside the organization. We can hire an employee as an accountant. He will do all our accounting work. Or if we cannot hire or don't want to hire someone from inside the organization to carry out accounting, we can hire the services of an accountant, a public accountant, who can provide us services and can charge us monthly fee, right? But but the audit process, that is carried out by the independent person who does not have any link with this organization which is being audited, right? Number 3, audit is verification of results shown by the profit and loss account and the state of affairs as shown by the balance sheet. Earlier I mentioned that auditing is not only examination of books of accounts. In auditing we also examine the financial statements, and the two main and important financial statements are profit and loss account, profit and loss statement or income statement, and the balance sheet or the statement of financial position. So in audit process, these two statements are also examined. They are also verified with the help of a standard procedure which is defined in auditing standards. Number 4, audit is a critical review of system of accounting and internal control. Audit is not all about examining the books of accounts and the financial statement, but also it covers complete accounting system of an organization and also the internal control system of an organization, right? Accounting system consists of human, the machines, the softwares, and the structure made for them in order to work smoothly. That complete system is called accounting system. So audit is the critical review of the accounting system. And internal control system, systemic control dakhili, it's a system made by the management of the organization in order to have a check and control over each and every activity in the organization. So in auditing we also examine the internal control system of the organization, right? Number 5, audit is done with the help of vouchers, documents, information and explanation received from authorities. So this is further elaboration. In auditing process, we verify, we check the vouchers, we check the documents and related to the transactions. we check other information and other explanation that we receive from the authorities. All this information is checked and then verified, right? Number 6, the auditor has to satisfy himself with the authenticity of the financial statements and reports, that they exhibit a true and fair view of the state of affairs of the concern. So the audit process is basically for the auditor to satisfy himself. First, he has to satisfy himself that whatever the organization has reported in their financial statements, whatever has been recorded in the books of accounts and on the documents, it's true and fair or not, right? Once he satisfies himself, then after that he can report this satisfaction to the third parties, right? At the end of the audit process, auditor writes a report. In that report, auditor explains everything. So when someone reads the report, then he can be made sure that a specific organization, how that organization is performing with respect to financial health, with respect to profit and loss, and with respect to other activities. Number 7, the auditor has to inspect, compare, check. So number 7 is basically explaining how audit process takes place. What is done by the auditor in the audit, right? Or in other words, we can say what is in the auditing. In auditing, we inspect, we compare, we check, we review, we scrutinize. Scrutinize मतलब چی معنی scrutinize باز کردن نمیگه. هر چیزی که ما پیش روی ما او را باز میکنیم، میبینیم، خوب او را با دیتیل مطالعه میکنیم. این میگه scrutinize. او اگه چی و چرا باشه یا correspondence باشه بین directors and shareholders، یا memorandum of association باشه، articles of association باشه، یا دیگه چیزایی که مطابقت داره که تی business transactions. اما همه چیزا را ما چی میکنیم؟ inspect, compare, check, review, scrutinize, right? So auditing is basically inspection. When we say examination the examination چی میاد؟ inspection, comparing, checking, reviewing and scrutinizing what? All the financial information and financial information, just an accounting record and financial statements, right? Vouchers either accounting record में correspondence of the director and shareholders ये हम the accounting record में अलावा जी memorandum of association ये रमा में के मुरमनामा एक निहात की देजा एक निहात निश्ता में करने तशरीह में करने की मकसदी निहात चीज़ता कुदाम करारा इना अंजाम में था. Articles of association असासनामे एक निहात में गुफ्ता में शा वदा वाज़े में बाशा के निहात از لحاظ حقوقی از لحاظ قانونی کدام نوع نهاد است و قانونا اجازه کدام کارها را داره که اینا انجام بده. فلهذا آدیتور اینا را هم چک میکنه و میبینه که آیا کارهایی که شما انجام دادین همون کاری است که قانونی بوده یا کارهای غیر قانونی هم شما انجام دادین. Right? So these were 7 features which differentiate auditing from accounting. Right? Now let's see what we have next. The next is objectives or purposes of auditing. So auditing or audit has mainly 2 purposes or 2 objectives. The first one is called primary objective and the second one is called secondary objective. Right? Primary objective is to comply with the law. And what is that law? The law is Companies Act 2013. So the Companies Act 2013 has required all the businesses, all the organizations to have an audit, at least once a year, at the end of every year. So this law requires all the companies to carry out an audit. So the main objective of the auditing is to comply with law. اطاعت پذیری قانون. صحیح سر؟ یہ هدف اول auditing است. So I said the primary duty or objective of auditor is to report to the owners that accounts or financial statements give true and fair view of the state of company's affairs as at the end of its financial year, and profit or loss, cash flow for the year, and such other matters as may prescribed. So basically it means that the main purpose of the auditing is to comply with the law. And what is that law? Companies Act 2013. This law says that once a year auditors should be requested to carry out audit, where they will examine all the accounting record and financial information, and then report that whether this accounting record and financial information represent true and fair view or not. Right? So that is the primary objective. Secondary objective could also be called incidental objectives. So what are those incidental objectives? Let's see. The first one is detection and prevention of frauds. Number 2 is detection and prevention of errors. So the second objective or the secondary objective of the auditing is to detect the frauds and then prevent them from happening in the future. And number 2, detection of errors and then prevention of those errors in the future. What is the difference between fraud and error? Fraud is basically a deliberate action where someone deliberately misrepresent, understate or overstate, or prepares fake documents or record behind or on the back of in support of a transaction, right? Or records fake transactions. That is called fraud. Error is indeliberate activity. Error could be a typo, it could be a human error, which is unintentional, right? So with the help of audit process, we can detect and then prevent the frauds and errors which may exist in the accounting record and the financial information or the financial statements of a company. So from here you must have known that how the audit process is important for us as a company, right? If I'm owner of the company and the financial manager and all my employees, they report to me that my organization is going well, but how I know that it is really going well? For this I have to ask an auditor, because auditor is an expert who knows the accounting, and he knows how to review and check the accounting and detect the fraud and detect the errors of the accountant, right? So for me as a business owner, it's very important that at the end of every year I conduct an audit, so it is known to me whether my organization is really going well or not. If I want to succeed and I want to continue my organization, I need to carry out audit at the end of each accounting period. An accounting period could be minimum 1 year. Okay, what is the need for audit? If we just forget about the objectives, primary objective and secondary objective of the auditing, again there is a need of the audit. right? For example, I am an organization who is not required by law to carry out audit. So is it good not to carry out audit for me? The answer is no, because I need to carry out audit, right? Because there could be errors from the accountants, right? There is possibility that the managers may disclose fraud, and there is a possibility that this information which is presented to me by the managers, by my managers, is deliberately or non-deliberately misleading, right? Or there's a possibility that the manager, my manager, fails to disclose the relevant information. And also there's a possibility that my manager fails to conform to regulations and standards. Look, the person who is doing accounting for you is a human, and human can always make mistakes. And if human does not update his information, his knowledge, so he could make errors, and the record he makes could not be according to the regulations and standards, right? Or there's a possibility that with each year our organization extends or expands. With expansion of organization, there is a need of expanding our chart of accounts. So chart of account is basically the list of accounts under which the transactions are recorded in the journal and ledger, right? So for example, 2 years earlier my organization was small and now it has expanded. So there is a need. 2 years earlier we had 3 types of expenses. Now there are 10 types of expenses, but we need to update it. And how we will know that we need to update? With the help of audit. When auditor comes, he reviews our accounting system, then he advises that your organization requires to update its expense accounts, its revenue accounts, its asset accounts, its liability accounts. So there are 5 main accounts, but under these five main accounts there are a lot of sub accounts. So with the lapse of time, our chart of account should also increase or decrease the number of accounts, and this is only possible when we have audit process. Okay, next is the history or background of auditing. Let's talk about how auditing came into existence. Is it like auditing existed long ago, or it has came into existence a decade ago, or maybe 5-6 decades ago? Let's find out that. Auditing, the evolution of the auditing is parallel to the growth of limited liability companies or corporations. When businesses were small and simple, there was no need of audit because everything was simple and the businesses were managed by the one individual or maybe 2-3 individuals, so it was easy for them to manage their accounting system, and they knew everything. So that's why long ago there was no need of audit. But with the passage of time, when businesses grow and they got complex, new structure of businesses came into existence. For example, limited liability companies, corporations, private limited and public limited companies. Then with the growth of this, the businessmen, the shareholders basically, right, they felt the need of the audit, right? So it was 19th century, 1844 to 1879, right, that for the first time the need of audit was felt because the organizations got complex, and those organizations required complex accounting. So then the stakeholders of those organizations demanded from the management of the organization to audit the information that they are presenting to the shareholders, right? In corporations and in big companies, there are two parties. The first party is the owners or the shareholders who invest their money, and the second party is the management, the board of directors or managers and directors and CEO, all them, right? So the shareholders, they were in doubt regarding the information which is presented to them by the management of the company. They said that whether this information is correct or incorrect, it's true or not true. Therefore, they demanded from them that this information should be reviewed, and this was for the first time, or the basic idea of the audit, right? At first, companies auditors were selected from among the shareholders, which was not so effective. So in those times, what happened, in order to make sure that the information presented by the management of the organization to the shareholders is correct or not, what people did, people selected 2 or 3 or 1 individual among the stakeholders, and that individual used to review all the accounting and financial information, and if he said okay, correct, the information was accepted to be correct by the shareholders, and if he said that it's not correct, not true, then all the stakeholders accepted that, and they asked the managers to re-prepare all that information by removing all those errors and misrepresentations, right? In 1844, the first act or companies law was passed, where it was required that a company's accounts should be reviewed by the stakeholder. So it was the first document, legal document, which set the scene for the audit that we have today. But during that time it was very simple, right? Nowadays stakeholders cannot carry out audit, but at those times stakeholders who were not like qualified people or not professional people, so that's why it was not effective, because the stakeholder who was selected to review the financial information and accounting record, he was not that expert, so he could easily be deceived by the managers or by the management of the company, right? But this was the first document where it was mentioned that a company's account should be reviewed by the stakeholder. So this is where it set the scene for the audit to be carried out. Under Act 1844, only registered companies were required to appoint 1 or 2 auditors, means the stakeholders, but there was no guidance on their independence and qualification. Like the stakeholders who were chose to review or examine the accounting record and financial information, it was not clear that how much qualification should they have, right? It was all the agreement, based on the agreement of the stakeholders. Whomever was selected by all the stakeholders, he was supposed to be an auditor, and he used to review the accounting and financial information of that company, right? Later on in 1856, another law was passed by the name of Companies Act 1856, where the role of auditor was explained, and it was clearly mentioned that who can be an auditor, right? This act introduced the idea that auditor need not to be a stakeholder, thus encouraging the development of the professional auditors. So in this act, it was mentioned that the stakeholder must not be an auditor because the stakeholder is not independent. So a third party, not a stakeholder, and neither the management, a third party should come and he should review the accounting record and financial information, and that third party should be qualified enough, right? So you see that with the passage of time, this audit process and this field of audit, it got more professional and more developed, right? So in 1879, another act was passed which replaced the act of 1856, right? And in this law, appointment of auditor was made compulsory for all banking sector, right? So, and then there was another law passed in 1900 which specifically further extended the scope of the audit to all the other businesses, and said that each and every business should carry out audits, especially the balance sheet of the business should be audited by a professional individual and who is called auditor. Where so in this act, the responsibilities of the auditor were explained, and who the auditor is, the qualification, all these requirements were further explained. So it encouraged the other people to become auditors, because the person who was selected to be the auditor, he was paid well for his job. That's why it became a source of income. So every person who wanted to become an auditor and earn a good amount of money, a good amount of income, he started learning and knowing more about this field. Later on, the professional bodies came into existence. Then professional education came into existence, which helped a lot in reforming the audit field as we have today. Later on, another law was passed which replaced the Companies Act 1900, and that law was called the Companies Act 1929, right? In this act, the profit and loss statement was also included. So this law said that not only the balance sheet but the income statement should also be audited, right? And then another act came into existence in 1948 which further extended the scope of the audit and said how the profit and loss accounts should be made. And then in 2013, a new act came into existence, and then based on this act, the auditor every person cannot be an auditor. Only a certified professional individual can be an auditor, and that auditor should review all the accounting record and financial information of a company, and then at the end report to the management, right, and to the internal stakeholders and to the external stakeholders. Okay, that was all about the features of auditing, the need of the auditing, the objectives of the auditing, and the history of the auditing. Now our main lecture is the professional bodies and accounting and auditing. Let's first discuss what is a professional body. So before I come to the definition of this, I would like to explain that in today's world we have two types of education. Number one is professional education, and number two is academic education, right? Academic education is provided by the universities, colleges, right? Whereas the professional qualification is provided by the professional bodies. Person who graduates from academic organizations, means universities and colleges, he cannot call professional individual. He is educated individual. He has got a degree, right? He has got a degree, and to obtain a degree, a person is only required to fulfill the subject requirement. Means you should have studied all the subject, and you should have passed all the exams of the subject included in that degree. No practical work is required from you to obtain a degree. But the professional organizations, they are different, right? Professional bodies or professional organizations, they only provide accreditations and certifications, no degrees. What do they provide? They provide accreditations and certifications. And provision of this certification and accreditation is based on the knowledge and the practical experience. It means that a professional individual requires to study all the modules of that specific professional organization, pass all the exams, and then fulfill the practical experience requirement, minimum 3 years of practical work in that specific field. After that, they step by step provide you these accreditation, right? Inshallah, later on we will discuss what type of accreditations are provided by the professional bodies. Now let's talk about the professional body. Professional body is an organization which conducts exams and provide accreditation to those professional individuals who fulfill the requirement with respect to qualification and experience in the field of auditing and accounting, right? Once again, professional body is an organization which does two things. Number one, conduct exams and provide accreditations. To whom? To those professional individuals who fulfill the requirements. And what are those requirements? The requirements of two types. The requirements are of two types. Number one, qualification, and number two, experience. Means you have to be qualified, at the same time you have to have experience in the field of auditing and accounting. If you are qualified in the field of auditing and you have experience in the field of auditing, then professional body will provide you certification or accreditation in the field of auditing. Means then you will be able to carry out audits. If you have qualification in accounting and you have practical experience in accounting as well, then the professional body will provide you accreditation or certification in the field of accounting. Means you will be a public accountant. You can provide accounting services in the field of accounting. So in the world there are various famous professional organizations operating from different countries in the world who issue certification and accreditation in the field of auditing and accounting, right? So the more famous and internationally recognized professional body is, the more tough their requirements are, right? If you want to get to be certified by one of the most well-known professional body in the world, then their requirements are very tough. You have to fulfill all those requirements. Once you fulfill all those requirements, they will provide a certification. So once they provide a certification, your value is much higher than a normal professional individual. So it totally depends on what type of organization you are accredited by and how well known that organization is. Each professional body's accreditation requirement may differ on the basis of which they provide certification and accreditation. A professional individual is abided by the code of ethics and compliance procedure of the body of whom he or she is a member, right? So once you have obtained certification or accreditation from a professional individual, from a professional body, you are now professional individual. Now you are required to accept all the rules and regulations of that organization, code of ethics and compliance procedures. If you does not obey those rules and regulations, then they will cancel your certification. Once your certification is cancelled, you are nothing, right? So that's all about the professional bodies in the field of auditing and accounting. Hope you have understood. If you have any questions, please come back to me in WhatsApp group with the questions or the recommendations. Inshallah, I'll entertain them for the next lecture. Thank you so much.